Hey, what's going on, people? It's Low Heat, and this is episode 1 of the Low Heat Beats podcast. This is a podcast about making beats, gear, music software, and everything that has to do with music production from the perspective of funk, hip-hop, and futuristic electronic music. What you see and hear now is a beat by Italian producer Madd3e, the first guest on my podcast. He's released plenty of dope music on labels such as Dance Supremacy, Darker Than Wax, Voyage Funktastique and Sidekick music. He's also a mix engineer and produces for other people in his studio in Rome. We talked about his Soulection influence, about beat making workflow tips, about the Maschine versus the Ableton push, and we had some nerd talk about synths such as the Bass Station 2. And so I hope you enjoyed the casual conversation we recorded. It was my first podcast in English, so bear with me. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel with notifications if you're watching this on YouTube, or subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform such as Spotify or Apple Podcasts. So yeah, I'm chilling here with my man Mauro, also known as Madd3e. How you doing, man?
Thank you, man. Hi to everybody. I'm doing great, man. It's just a tough time for everybody, but yeah, we're holding up. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine, man. I've had a very busy week and I'm just chilling at this moment, and I'm really happy, man, to have you on my first podcast, man. It's a big honor for me to have such an amazing producer, mix engineer, and all-around cool guy, because talking to you is really fun. You're really positive, and we've got a lot of things in common, like we're interested in the same pieces of gear, music-wise, music styles and stuff. So we've got plenty of stuff to talk about, and I'm sure my viewers will like your presence on the podcast, man, and I hope they do follow the links in the description, because I'll put all your socials and some new releases that you may have in the description. So definitely go check Mauro's music. It's really incredible, and I'm not saying it just to make me feel better. The productions are really amazing, but
Thank
one
you.
of the reasons I actually invited you to be the first guest on my podcast on the channel is because your style of music is very relevant to what I do and to my style, basically. So if we can summarize it with one word, I would say it's funk, but it's mostly a lot of different styles that come from it.
Is the 20th century funk, basically. So it's pretty much taking something from every genre right now and making it funky, basically. So
totally, man. So how did you actually get to this style of music? What led you to start doing this?
So it's it was a pretty long process, actually. I didn't start as a funk producer, because in the first time I was starting making music, I was really young, like 16 years old. Now I'm almost 30, so I'm gonna turn 30 this year, actually. And but yeah, I was doing more like sound design and electronic stuff, not really into anything. There wasn't that much music into that stuff. It was more like production and synth bass and sounds and really heavy productions.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think like 6 or 7 years ago, when I think the most influential things that started me doing more of this kind of music was the Soulection,
mm-hmm.
Rise. So back in the days, listening to them, and if you listen to SoundCloud back in the days, there wasn't so much that much interest in music, because I think at the time there was like if you remember the what's it called, Tropical House.
Yeah,
Do you know
sure.
the genre? It was more geared towards it's
It's more mainstream, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was more mainstream, and then Soulection came in and they bring out the, you know, the soul, the funk, the electronic music, and that was all mixed. So, you know, a lot of producers at the time got the opportunity to basically show up, you know, their sounds, and without the fear, you know, of being different. So I think that was one of the main reasons why I got into this music. I recognize that my music has nothing to do with Soulection, but it was the whole, you know, movement that got me thinking about making something different, you know, that you can do it.
Yeah, without actually doing a certain genre.
Exactly.
You make some eclectic stuff, combine all your influences, and are not afraid to experiment. I think that's what it's all about. So it's not a single genre. So yeah, that's what makes it so dope, man. Totally. I was digging the same kind of music back then, 2013, like you.
I can hear that, yeah, in your production too.
Yeah,
so.
totally, man, totally. But one thing that I've noticed from watching your Instagram feed and your Instagram stories is that you're heavily involved with the dancing and popping culture, which is, I think it's really dope, because your music has that groove that you just can't not dance or nod your head. Like, the groove is so tight. So how did you get involved with those dancers?
That was a pretty funny story. So actually, I didn't know what popping was back in the days, and I made the song called P for Popping. But I thought like popping was a genre, basically, not a style of dancing. You know, I was pretty ignorant. You know, I never been. I always saw people, you know, dancing and you know, locking, popping, and you know, all the kind of street dance movements. But never got into the details and the names and everything. So I made this song, and then there was a friend of mine, Thomas, which said, you know, I got some people that would really like your music, and do you want to make a video with them? And I say, yeah, I mean, why not? So I got into Madd3e and his crew back in the days. I think it was 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And yeah, we shot a video on P for Popping on YouTube. And so that's how I got into, you know, knowing more people from that scene. And then basically they got me, you know, after a long time, you know, I understood what was the movement, what was the, you know, the culture behind that, because it's really amazing. Like, I think it's basically is one of the best like surrounding that you can find in music. They're really supportive to one another, and even, you know, there's a lot of battles and they all, you know, fight each other, but I feel like after every single battle they all friends and they go, you know, drinking together, and it's amazing. You know, I never saw something like that. Instead, if the music industry, there's a lot of competition and there's a lot of people, you know, getting really how do you say that? Competitive
and hostile.
Yeah, to each other.
Yeah.
Instead, it's all about, you know, love and support to each other. So I got really, you know, that movement got really big, and especially because there's one of the, you know, the Madd3e, which was basically the first dancer I knew from Italy, and a big friend of mine. And so yeah, he got the gym that they use for, you know, the training, basically just around my house. So I can just go to them, and they, you know, always play interesting music, and I hang out with them, and it's just a really cool movement. You know, I know a lot of them now, and you know, they're really friends for me.
Sounds great, man. Really organic way to, you know, to actually spread your music, because I'm pretty sure that this has helped your music to reach more people, and by, you know, dancers telling about you to their friends and playing your music in those dance battles. So I think it's a really organic way to, you know, to promote your music without you even maybe trying to promote it, you know. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was totally really organic. I never intended to promote my music, but they were just, you know, so supportive. I didn't do anything special, you know. I didn't promote myself to them. They were just, you know, loving the music and dancing to that. So that was really, you know, a logical thing that would happen with us basically together. And I'm trying to work with them together in the studio a lot more these days. So probably these days it's gonna be a long time since we go back to the studio all together, but yeah.
that was going to be my next question, man, because when we talked last week, I was surprised that you, because of the coronavirus situation, you're actually one of the people that has been impacted by this, and you can't even go to your studio and do your mixing work. How do you feel about this? That this doesn't really sound all that great.
I mean, I had to stop basically all the work I was doing, and I had to go in the studio with you know, some singers and some people that I had around, and I had to do mixes and masters for other people. But yeah, that this COVID disease kind of slowed the process down. I'm actually going right now. I'm getting back to that with these headphones basically. So yeah.
Oh, the bar dynamics, the open ones, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's tough, but I reckon if you know what you're doing and you actually know, I kind of remember the sound when I was doing the mixes in the studio, and I remember listening to the songs on these headphones after getting back from the studio. So I actually kind of know how the mixes should sound. It's a bit difficult with, you know, the volumes and the reverbs and, you know, the room basically. It's there's no room basically in with the headphones.
Yeah, even if you had your main monitors at home without room acoustics, it doesn't really matter all that much.
They sound really awful actually, I prefer just not using them. They actually really like the 3 inches Mackie speakers. I don't even know the names. They're just multimedia speaker, you know, just when I'm tired of wearing headphones. And so yeah, that it was tough, you know. It's tough to live in Italy right now, and I feel like this we kind of in a phase 2 situation right now, so we can go out and see our parents, or as they call it, the relative ones. But I think it's the same as the phase 1. It's just I can see my grandparents basically. So
yeah, totally, man. And so this mixing thing, this is actually your day job, right? You can, it's like what you do. It's a work, basically.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I only work with music right now, so I'm really lucky for that. But it's not only mixing. It's just I prefer producing actually over mixing, obviously, because it's more fun and creative. And you know, when I produce, I always mix too. So it's kind of, you know, the best of both. I just make music while mixing, or mixing while make music, and you know, it's just more natural for me, the whole process.
So do you mix? I think we talked about probably making a separate dedicated, like a video or an episode about mixing with you, but I was curious, how much do you actually mix while producing? Because what I found out is that if you get too much into mixing while you're actually writing your music, you end up with big fat nothing, because like you get tired, your ears get tired before you've even developed the whole idea or laid down all the parts. So
yeah,
how do you deal with this situation?
You actually overthink and overdo everything when you're producing. Actually, I must say, like, most of the times, like for all the songs you saw on the, you know, Spotify and you know, SoundCloud, I don't mix them too much and too heavy. There's actually a lot of sound design on the individual tracks, but no real mixing. You know, I don't. You know, when I have a synth laying down, and I prefer, you know, modifying the synth instead of reaching for an effects after that. So I just create sounds based on the music. unfortunately, I'm really quick at sound designing because I spent a lot of times on synths, you know.
That's great. That's great, man.
So yeah, when I need something, I just reach for the right knob and you know, just do it really quick. Because I found at the beginning, when you're starting to produce, the big problem is time. For me, it's the biggest enemy of production and making music, actually, because it's you know, when you have a sound in mind, then you take like 3-4 minutes just to make a bass patch. It's cool, you keep it in mind. But if you take like 20 minutes or half an hour to make just one bass patch, you just forget, you know, what you wanted in the first place, and maybe you forget the melody, and maybe you forget, you know, what you wanted to do in the first place. You lose excitement, you know.
Absolutely, man. Because when you sit down to make a beat or a song or a track, you've got that energy that needs to get out of you, and but it doesn't last forever. You get hungry, you get sleepy, the phone rings, and it's over. You know.
Yeah.
So
exactly. Perfect.
So
what's your process on that? Do you mix while producing?
Very like, if I need to make like an adjustment, I do it very quickly, but mostly my approach is pretty much the same. I've got a collection of samples. Maybe I also save my drum kits. Like, this is a great tip for our viewers and listeners who are working with Ableton. Use your user library to save your drum kits that you really like and you know they work. It's amazing that with Ableton you can save the whole chain of effects as well. So if you know that if you have something that works, you save it to your user library, drag and drop it onto the next project, and you know it works. I mean, it may need some tweaking a bit later, but you've got that initial good sounding drum kit or a synth patch or you know, whatever.
So you basically save the whole drum kit with the effects.
Totally, man. I make
that's cool.
I often, not every time, but I often make an instrument track to have the effects contained into the. And also, there's one great feature you can do with Ableton is that you can actually import tracks from your older projects when you have them in the browser. I mean, if I remember, I had those dope drums in the last track I did, I may just import it, and again, I have it sounding pretty good. Of course, you can resample and whatever, but yeah, that's what I prefer to do. And with synth presets, it's pretty much the same. And what I also like a lot is that saving those instrument tracks in Ableton, you can save them with VSTs. So I have my favorite, for example, Monarch, which is my favorite bass plugin. I've got a lot of presets saved with it, with effects.
With Ableton racks instead of
so instead of loading Monarch, which you need to load Reactor and then load Monarch, I just drag and drop it, and I'm good to go.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's what I do.
I never used you know, I always do as you said already, you know, I drag and drop tracks inside projects, you know, for my old projects. That's a really great feature in Ableton. I don't know if, you know, that many programs has this possibility actually, because it's really cool. And but yeah, I never thought about saving the drum kits, because what I do usually is I save the sounds that I love inside my library, and it's a mixture of sounds that I bought and sounds that I made, and I just scroll through them. But it's, you know, it's not a big library, so I usually, you know, I have like 40 kicks, and I choose you know, with them. And obviously I have my favorite ones that I always get back to. And I had a pretty good tip actually that I don't know who said it. I think I saw it on YouTube, that, you know, when you do sound design, save the WAV file and then save another Ableton kind of you know, device with all the settings, you know. So you save the whole channel. So if you want to tweak just a little bit, you know, maybe the tail of the kick or something, you can do that without changing the WAV file, you know. You can go back to the process.
Absolutely, this can work too. It just the bad thing is when you start looking amongst gigabytes of samples for that one sample. This is what you don't want to do. Like if you have your favorites and if you've separated the ones that you really know you're gonna use, that's cool. But you know, looking for a needle in the haystack, it's a creativity killer in my.
That's a big problem of new producer. Actually, I always find them to search for sounds, and they have like so many sounds that you know. With a sound, you need to get attached to it, because I think like between 100 kicks, you know, there's not gonna be that much difference, you know, between them. You always like the same kind of the same type, you know. You already have tastes, obviously. So what's the point of having 100 of them if you can modify one or two of them and have the consistent results, you know, inside your music? And that's, you know, this process kind of generate your sounds after you know, at some point. It's a normal process, you know. So when people ask you how do you develop your sound, it's just, you know, it's not the sound, it's your taste that's developing basically. So, you know, there's no point of having a really big library for me. Instead, like right now, I deleted all my sample. Basically, I started from scratch, and I only have my samples. And there's a really good. I have like the noise subscription, which I think like, you know, in between sounds.com and Splice, and there's I don't remember. There's a lot of them right now. I think there's one from Output, Loop Cloud, exactly. The one from Loop Master, right?
Totally.
And but I found like the noise samples are the most organic and unique, because they're not over processed, so you can mix them, you know, in your song, and they really light. So that's maybe why a lot of people prefer Splice, because they're really hard hitting. If you know decap drums, you put a kick and it's already, you know, exploding everything. So.
I know them, and I've watched his videos. He actually smashes them with the glue compressor with the soft saturation, and which is a really good tip actually. But you can, now that you know it, you can do it yourself, you know,
with heavy drums, and you know, create your drums, not the one that everybody used. So yeah.
But that's interesting topic, because I think those companies, they need to impress the beginners, the people that are struggling with finding awesome sounds, that are struggling with mixing and sound design. So Perfect. If they hear those drums and they're, wow, these drums are banging, man, you know, it works, but it's not that flexible. You can't really modify them that much. So that's
exactly what I'm thinking. So yeah, you explained it really, really well.
Yeah, totally. So noise, right?
It's for Samplephonic, actually. I don't know if you remember.
And I've visited the website, but I haven't really used it. How much does it cost actually?
I think I'm an early adopter, and I'm paying like $5 every month. So really, it's not a lot for everything.
For how many samples?
Everything. You can even download everything in one day if you want to.
Wow, with Splice it's not so cheap, and with Sounds.com, man, they've been. I'm not gonna say spamming, because I'm interested in their stuff, but they've been sending me emails, you know, Sounds.com. Well, that's great, man, but they're not available in Bulgaria, in my country, and so.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they are still not available. I think like they're like, oh yeah, we're coming to your country. We're coming. When?
I think there was in Italy too. I had the same problem, because I wanted to try them some time ago, and you know, I couldn't pay with anything. Like I have a PayPal, you know, and I have, you know, a credit card, nothing. They didn't accept it, but I could. Back in the days, there was, you know, when they first opened, they got the free samples, and I downloaded some of them, and there were. One pack which was really, really cool was Mike Colombo, which is a keyboard player. He plays R&B and, you know, hip hop and this kind of style, and it was so cool. It was free, so yeah. I don't know if they do it. They still do it, like free samples every week or so.
Not sure, but I generally dig the native instrument sounds, so I think they got some dope stuff there, but I just can't use it unless I move abroad. So like, it doesn't really work. But they also have this integration because I use Maschine obviously, and they've got this integration with complete control and with Maschine, so you can have your samples right in the browser without
so
actually.
You can browse the sounds.com samples from Maschine.
I think not the store, but the sounds that you've actually purchased.
Okay.
But you find it to your library straight from the. And with Maschine, I think it's gonna be dope because you can probably do it from the hardware. So because I like to work with the Maschine hardware pretty often actually, because I think the experience is like. It's like
MPC.
Working, it's like working with an MPC. I mean, with the push, it's really dope as well. But with the push, there's some stuff I need to do with the mouse, and
I'm actually only using the push for play, records, and not much.
It's still dope for this. It's still great.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can see, like, I try to play it with, you know, the notes like a launchpad, you know, when you have that kind of grid, then you can try to, you know, you can change the kind of grid and how the keys behave. Yep. But I didn't find anything that I could play, you know, I'm used to the keyboard.
Oh, you mean so you're talking about the keyboard mode, the.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you play synths and bit.
Yeah, even though you can actually eliminate the wrong notes. Mm-hmm. I'm still not good with this. I mean, I prefer to play it on the keys because.
I think it's for guitarists actually, because for some way has the similar layout to guitars.
That's a great point, man. It's the so-called isomorphic layout, if I'm not mistaken. So it makes much more sense to guitar players. But yeah. I think it's really dope. So
there was actually a mode that I remember. I still have it somewhere. You know Native Control actually. They making like not patches, but you know, the custom remote controls for the, you know, the MIDI controls. And there was one thing for the push, which was actually it was really difficult to use. Like there was so many stuff. Like you can even import a MIDI file, and this script kind of analyze the MIDI file and then imports all the chords that you played in the way you played inside every note. So it populates like the single notes of the push with the chords, and it was so amazing. But it's too difficult for me.
Sorry to interrupt, but are they just parallel chords, or are they like the proper chord that needs to be on this exact note for this key?
No. You just, you know, if you, for example, you just import one MIDI file from a big library, you know, of kind of soul producer, you know, that's a soul keyboardist, and he played like 4 chords. But you know, the way they play chords is not like straight. Boom.
Yeah.
It's like more like, you know, it's called strumming or something.
Yep.
Yeah. So with this program, you can actually import the whole strumming, and in the way they did it inside every note of the push. It was really complex, and for some I couldn't use it. Like it was so difficult. But then like there was one mode. I don't know if you know on the iPod there's an app. Which you know, lets you play the chords in a really easy way. I think it's the same of MIDI controller with buttons, with all the buttons, but they like octagons.
I think I remember this one, but I don't remember how it's called. So it works like a MIDI controller. You connect your iPad to your computer and you use it as a MIDI controller, right?
Exactly, and he has a really easy way to play really difficult chords, because they actually, you play like in a row, like this is minor and this is major. I don't know if I explained it really well, but basically you can do the same on the iPad, on the push. And it's actually really easy then to play different chords. And I think Jay Elliott is I don't know if you know him, Jay Elliott, that has another YouTube channel, and I saw the program from him actually.
Yeah,
And,
you've mentioned him, but I didn't have the
Mhm.
have the time to check him out. But I will definitely do. But my opinion on these native control things, I think that they were. I looked into them back in the day when I was using those stupid controllers. You know, the cork pad control, the Akai MPD. You know, these. Yeah, this one too. Like, and by saying stupid, I don't mean they're bad, but they're just sending, like, you don't have the backwards communication, so it's not like the push, which is a instrument in itself.
It's a script, yeah.
And I think the native control scripts are good for those kind of controllers to have some control of your session besides just playing notes and tweaking knobs.
But can you do a whole, like, is it like an MPC? So can you close the screen from of the PC and just work from Maschine?
Absolutely, man. That's what I really like about the Maschine, and the MK3 actually took this to the proper level. I mean, the one thing with Maschine that you can't do, and I swear, man, it's one thing. You can't actually type the name of your project. This is what you need to do from the keyboard. Everything else, you can load projects, save projects. You can change your audio interface buffer settings. You can change
from the hardware unit.
Absolutely, man. You can change your preferences. You can edit MIDI. Like, you can edit your.
That's another thing I need to spend money on. Thank you.
Yeah, man. But I've discussed it a lot on the channel. But what's really not what I really don't like about the platform is that I need to export my. I mean, it's very quick to make a beat, but I need to export it to Ableton to have the flexible arrangement options.
But what's the difference between the arrangement on Maschine and the arrangement? Can you edit the clips, and cut them, and
Yeah, not really. You can't really cut them that much. It's all like it's the session view of Ableton, but horizontally. I mean, they don't have the flexible arranger that there is in Ableton. It's all divided into scenes, like, so it's this sequence, this sequence, this sequence. But
so if you want to do a drum fill, you need to do another clip.
You need to duplicate it, right? And if you want to do a transition, you need to have like an empty clip, and the transition is at the end. Nah, and there's no audio. There's no audio tracks. So
it's exactly like an MPC, basically.
absolutely. And they're planning to actually improve this and to make it more like make it closer to a proper DAW now that they're gonna be releasing a new version in the summer, which would be really great, because I would really love to be able to finish the tracks there. I mean, I'm not gonna stop using Ableton, obviously, but because the effects are dope, the sounds are dope. So
have you ever tried the MPCs? Is it called MPC Studio or MPC the DAW on the?
The only MPC I've had was the MPC 1000, which was before they actually did those modern MPCs. It was one of the older MPCs, and
the black one, right?
Yeah, it was the black one, and it's really, by today's standards, this is a really limited machine. So I sold it, got the machine. That was back in 2010, man. That was like 10 years ago.
Why did you, what was the limitation that made you switch into a machine?
First of all, because I started making music on the computer before that. I'm not MPC user from day one.
You switched into a PC and then back to the...
Yeah, I was using FL Studio like when I was in high school or something. Then I got into Ableton. But what was really like a huge shock for me, because I read, they have like, 10, 12 effects, or like 6, I'm not sure how many effects. And I was like, okay, I can do with those. Like they've got the essentials. And when I started using it, I realized, and they say they have 2 effects actually. You can use 2 effects. And I was like, so you mean I can use 2 effects on each sound? Yeah, I can manage with that. And then I realized you can use 2 effects for all your sounds at any given time in the project.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, this is really, it's really cool machine, but I really rely on sound design a lot, like you do. And
so you need to print them basically every time.
Yeah, that's why a lot of people use like the SP404 or a Chaos Pad or some other hardware effects processor to actually sample through them with the effects, or run the sounds out of the MPC and back through the effects processor. And while this can lead you to some really great results, basically the year that I got the MPC, I probably made only 1 beat the whole year, or 2 beats, you know. And I was like, man, I really love this machine, but it doesn't really work. And by that time, Maschine, the first version was getting really popular, and I was like, man, this is the same thing. I can work only with the controller without actually looking at the screen and mousing around, because this is very bad for your wrist. And
But you don't even have the Maschine Studio, the big one, like with the screen. So you can work with the smaller one, like with everything.
Never had the Studio, but the MK3 is actually better than the Studio in my opinion, because it has the same screens, and it's smaller. It doesn't take up much space, and it actually has a built-in audio interface. So it's really great if you want to take it on the road. You don't need to bring an audio interface. You already have a high-quality native instruments interface built in the.
So you can sample from. Is it a mic interface? Does it have like?
You can only record from in terms of line inputs. You can sample, of course, from synths, from mixers, but in terms of mics, it's only dynamic mics. There's no XLR and there's no phantom power. But I guess the limitation is that they wanted to be able to run it off USB power.
Okay, yeah, sure.
So
I mean, back in the days, there wasn't that much, I think, technology to do everything with the lighting, a machine and screen, and put a phantom power. Because like right now, the phantom power it's working with audio interfaces with only a USB. But I think like with all the lightings and everything the machine has.
Absolutely, man. It has 2 color screens and so many buttons. And actually, you've noticed something about, and I guess that's a lot about the comparison between the two. And one of the things I think you've noticed about the push 2, because I know you use it as well. And when you plug out the power supply, it's really dim.
You cannot see anything.
Like if you have a dark room, okay, but if as soon as it's properly lit, you don't see anything.
Because it's an OLED. I think it's an OLED display. It sucks a lot of power actually.
But it's not just the display. All the pads, all the buttons get really dim. And with the Maschine, they also have 2 very crisp, very nice displays. And it has an optional power supply as well. But when you pull out the power supply, it's still very bright and very nice to work. So that's a big difference between the two, because with the Maschine you just plug it, no need for power supply. You got an audio interface built in, so it's dope.
I don't think the push is actually has that much of it's not taken inside my workflow that much. I don't know why, it just doesn't stick with me. I was really interested. I'm like I bought it on the first week when it was out in Italy. So I'm one of the really
the push
early.
Did you have the first beforehand? The first one?
And with that one you can use it actually without the power supply. It doesn't change as much, as this one.
Absolutely, but the pads were not really that good on the.
They're really, really bad.
Like on the push one, that is.
On the push 2, they're amazing. Like for me, that's one of the best pads, and I actually play drums on them. I love playing drums, but it's a bit overpriced, only for playing drums. So yeah, I'm actually trying, because when you're in the studio and you have a lot of maybe synths and stuff laying around, I just the mouse is quicker. And plus, I'm used to the workflow, of macros and with the keyboard actually, and the mouse. I'm really quick. Instead, if I want to use the push, I just need to force myself on being slow, basically, because there's no way you can set up an audio channel with the push as quick as you do with the mouse. you know, and just change the inputs and everything.
But it can be done actually. If you go to the mixer settings, you can set up the inputs, but like you said,
you can do everything from the push. It's actually except saving the project and doing some stuff.
Totally, you can do everything, but if you're used to using the mouse, you'll be quicker with the mouse, right?
No, I don't think it's a workflow made for a hardware unit, Ableton. Instead, Maschine, I think it's really well made for that reason, you know. It's like MPC.
Exactly.
Where would you use a mouse? Like that's no sense, you know. Everything makes sense with a big knob and the pads. But with the push, it's not that. It's not made in that way. It's just a plus on Ableton, actually.
A very good point. This is exactly my opinion, because push was added to Ableton at a later point. Exactly. And Maschine was built from the ground up with the idea to work from the controller. So exactly. That's why the Maschine controller, in my opinion, is much more fun to use. But yeah, they're both dope, man. Like it's hard to compare them. They're both really great. But this actually leads me to, because talking about the push and saying that you don't really use it that much and you prefer. The next topic that I want to discuss is how do you actually start making those beats? Because do you start on the session view? Do you start on the arrangement view? And basically, do you have a certain process? Because people watching my channel, they know basically how this is what I do. This is how I start my beats. But how do you do this?
I know you started your project in the, you know, we did a collaboration actually. So I saw you making clips on the session view actually. But no, I just I don't know. When I started using live, was usually using both, like starting on the session view and, you know, making loops. But right now it doesn't make sense for me because I just record. I don't record loops that much. I just do, you know, when I'm playing the bass, I'm actually turning on record and then just record for 32, you know. Bars or something, and just, you know, I just leave record and just play it, and then most of the time I just change some notes and keep it like that. I like that it's not always the same, you know, and it makes your music a bit more alive. So I found myself, you know, starting more on the arrangement view these days. In terms of what I do first, it's not a great question. I'm just, you know, laying around and maybe because, you know, I usually don't start a beat because I want to do a beat. I'm usually, you know, sound designing on some synths that I have, or just, you know, I'm just listening to some songs and maybe take a little bit of that song and copy the drum parts or the keys, or make the melody as a bass line, or I don't know, everything that sticks with me at that moment. And yeah, just play around with that. Usually they're really simple beats and you know, just like drums, keys and bass. A lot of bass actually.
Yeah, of course, bass is super important with the funk. You can't have the funk without the bass, man. Like, whoa. Where you go without the bass?
You need to lock the groove, you know. You have to have, you know, if you have the right kick, snare, clap, and the bass, you pretty much made the whole song.
You're halfway there, totally, man. I agree. But yeah, you mentioned those synths, man, and I've seen you do those Instagram jams with the bass station, and then you also have the DeepMind 12, which is I would say it's a great synth. The name is really tacky, man. I don't know, DeepMind 12.
It wasn't called DeepMind actually at the beginning. I was following the production of this unit, and it was called. I don't remember the name, but yeah, he had another name. They called it DeepMind when they added the effects, because that's the most, you know, the killing part of this synth is that Behringer basically bought every single, you know, effects company.
TC Electronic.
So, yeah, TC Electronic. They have like Clark Technic,
yeah.
So when they had these companies, they made the whole FX unit, and you know, that made it really deep. So that's why they call it Deep Mind, because it's he has a lot of possibilities actually. I didn't explore them, and I made almost 100 patches until now, and I didn't explore every single thing that it's on this synthesizer. Instead, with the with the base station, it was a pretty much what you see, what you get, and you have different modes like the new FX Twin mode,
Yeah.
which is really cool, but I don't find myself using that. So for the listener, it's just you make one patch for every key of the bass station, and when you press one key, it changes from different patches. So you can make kick, clap, maybe a bass, but only one note, on every key. So it's I don't know. You can play one sound at the time, basically. It's fun, if you make glitch music, kind of, strange electronic.
Absolutely, man. It's impressive what they packed into the base station, because they added a lot of improvements later on, and it's a really solid synth. Actually, I've had it for about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. Never thought about selling it, so I guess it's solid.
I think it's one. It doesn't sound, for me, it doesn't sound that kind of, it doesn't have the Moog sound or the Odyssey sound, which they are really, you can recognize them. But basically you can do everything with that, and it doesn't, if you need something, it delivers always. So that's what, sticks with me with that synth. And I know you use that all the time, probably because that reason too, because it's it's versatile. You can do everything, and it's duophonic too. So
absolutely. For comparing to the others, budget analog mono synths, they all have what I found out is they all lack something. Like for example, the monologue doesn't have a proper pitch bend. It has that stick, which is nah. I want my pitch bend, I want my mod wheel, and the sound, it's really, like you said, really versatile in terms of sound. And what I really like about it is that actually adding resonance and adding the distortion algorithms doesn't actually cut your bass, which actually happens on pretty much every other analog. Like if you use the Moog, let me say it properly, Moog. Yeah, it's Moog.
Yeah.
If you use but I'm not going to be saying Moog, no. I'll forget. So yeah, but if you use the Moog, when you crank up the resonance, it loses the bass, and with the bass station, it's not like that. So it's really.
I really like the filter on this one, but I think the distortion is the killing feature on that one, because I love distortion anyway. So having two kind of distortion, and they really make sense, because one is before the filter and the other one is after the filter, and they really make sense. I know why they put it in that way, and I think if it wasn't for distortion, probably you couldn't enjoy the whole vibe of that synth, probably. So they made the best, probably the best out of the both worlds, because I think it's really precise as an analog synth, so it doesn't really have phase issues between the oscillators, and all you can do it, but it's fake. It's almost like the Deep Mind does the same thing, that they are actually analog oscillator, but they're digitally controlled. So basically they always in tune, but you can make them act like a hardware synth, like a analog oscillator, sorry. And no, actually in the Deep Mind they're DCO, so they're digital.
No, I think they're both the base station and the Deep Mind. I think they're both DCOs, so they're analog oscillators, but they're stable because they're digitally controlled. And I don't know, I really like it actually, because first of all, no need to wait for it to warm up before actually being in tune. So I mean that's crazy for me, like. I've heard about.
You need to have it all the time on, if you don't want to wait 1 hour to just.
Yeah, actually, I was looking into the little Fatty before I bought the base station, and the little Fatty, because it's the rack mount one. What is the little Fatty? or the Slim Fatty.
The Slim Fatty.
I think it was the Slim Fatty, which was just a rack mount, that's a tabletop unit, no keys.
I think no, I think it's the black one, like the Taurus maybe.
Nah. I think it was the Slim Fatty, the
rack unit,
the tabletop unit. And what I read about it is that you actually needed to wait for about half an hour or an hour for it to get in tune, which is even more than other Moog synths because it's so small. And sounds amazing, man, but like I don't know, I don't have that much time, so
I remember being in the studio with some friends, and they have the old Monopoly from COG. And we actually turn it on and then basically go make pasta, eat. So then almost 2 hours passed by. And it was still like really, really randomish. Like you cannot tune the oscillator in no way. Like really, you have them, usually they're like that. You need to put them like this. And then after 1 minute, they just, you need to retune them. So it's just like basically a guitar, basically. So every time you play that, they go out of tune and you need to tune them again. Which I don't mind that too much, to be honest. Because I don't feel like if they auto-tune, that's not usable. Instead, it's just, like in the moment, they sound a bit more, random. And, maybe you can use that to your advantage. You can record, the randomness at first, and then, half an hour later, while you go over the song, you record the more straight part, and maybe you can use both. I don't know. It's just
but like you said, you can't even tune it because it's fluctuating. It's not like a couple of cents up or down. It's constantly changing.
Even minus 50, like half a semitone actually.
Yeah, quarter tone, which sounds awful. Like when you have other instruments going on.
I mean, it depends. If you filter that and distort it, who gives?
yeah, totally, man, totally. But yeah, it's cool to have some hardware, because to touch the knobs and have some more character in the sound. Because software synthesizers, I feel they're great and I use them a lot. Obviously, I've got the Complete 12 and the Arturia V Collection 6. I don't have the XL versions of anything because I think this is already too many synths. Actually, I'm not sure why people buy those XL versions where your life,
that's too much.
You don't have enough time in your life to hear all the sounds, let alone use them. But
that's true.
Whatever. So you're basically using both, right? You're using Diva as well
I must say that I don't think the hardware synths sounds that different from VSTs right now, especially the good ones.
But especially the good ones is the key point, because if you have the older ones, they all sound like
garbage,
kind of plasticky,
Yeah.
The really good ones like Diva, like Monarch, they're really close to hardware, pretty much indistinguishable in most cases, right?
But I feel like when you hear the thing is, it's two things. Like you can. The hardware, the sound is passing by, the analog world before hitting your DAW, right? Your analog interface. So those two conversions add something to the sounds. And obviously, if you have a cheap synthesizer, a hardware synthesizer, probably it sounds shit, or maybe it sounds great, because you like that kind of grittiness. But definitely that thing, that keyboards add something.
Yeah, because it passes into the real world. It's not all virtual. Like even if it's a digital synth, it may be a digital synth, not an analog. But interacting with electricity and with the real world adds something to the sound. So even if you resample your software synths like this, so yeah, I agree.
I think in the end it doesn't mean anything if you know your end result, but it's inspiring for me, at least having a hardware synth and knowing I need to play in the best way possible, because I don't record MIDI usually with synths. I just go straight with audio. And if I do something wrong, it's just it's gonna remain wrong. and I like that for some reason. I'm like a bit of masochist. So,
right.
But I think like there's something like beautiful about, you know, being a bit imprecise and, you know, doing things that you cannot really adjust too much in the PC. And I like that, you know. It's kind of made his way in my music, you know. If you listen to my song, usually there's you know, there's something all the time. There's something changing, even though it's the same loop. You can feel it's changing, and that's because I played it 2 times basically.
All right, right. So you double track it as audio? Is that correct?
It's not double tracking. I just play the whole song.
Okay. Okay. So you play the whole song all the way through.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And then, you know, I obviously cut the really bad parts, but most of the times, you know, I keep that, you know, not as a loop.
Right. I think that's really important to have that human feel. So dope. That's good to know, man. And yeah, but also what I like about this is that you've recorded this. You've recorded it. It is what it is. You don't have the option to tweak it endlessly. So you're committed to what you've recorded, and you can move on, which is actually quite liberating, because, you know, it is what it is.
I mean, you need to move on. There's nothing you can do, you know. So
Exactly.
you cannot tweak the envelope or the, you know, even the pitch the pitch down that you made.
Exactly.
You cannot move it. So, you know,
Exactly.
either you do that another time or you leave it as it is. And I think that, you know, the problem right now with those is that you have like infinite kind of, you can make a mistake infinite time and, you know, just go back for it. But if you just commit to that and you know, you just stick with the first one and you listen again, you find that errors are you know, beautiful in some way, you know. So it's like it's more like, when I think about music production and everything that's music related, I think it's like those things are the things that's shaping your sound the most, basically. So the fact that you maybe commit to something you did one time, and even if you all the time you have something that you don't like, you keep with that, you know, because other people don't listen to music like you do anyways. So why would you, you know, keep adjusting things until they sound perfect? Because in the end, they sound perfect to you, but it doesn't mean sound perfect to everybody. So, you know, if you stick with that imperfection, that make your sounds in the end. And it's a way of producing that's more, for me at this point, it's more natural. Because I'm, you know, as I told you, you know, my background is really sound design, and you know, you just move MIDIs basically all the time, and there's nothing real by that, you know, if you know what I mean. But I realized it's not about the MIDI notes, the little, you know, red things in live. It's more about how you feel them. Because if you stop feeling them as little red things and more about sounds, and you hear the sound instead of seeing the MIDI things, you can use Ableton as a real world instrument. So it's always about your workflow, your way of thinking music, and you know, that's I think that's the most important thing. That it's not the sounds, it's not how you made your chords, it's not how you made your bass, what instrument do you use. That's, you know, that's a bonus for you. Even mixing, I mean, it's cool that you have your song which is really sounding amazing and hitting really hard, but you don't need that, you know. You just need your sound. And so
exactly,
yeah, that's
exactly, man, exactly. Because when you have those imperfections, it's like you're injecting more of yourself into the sound, because if everything is perfectly quantized, perfectly in tune, like where like it could have been done by a robot. Like it's not, there's no human expression. So I think these things, and even though regular listeners, they don't really notice those things, I think it it basically improves the whole vibe of the song, and they can feel it subconsciously without actually knowing what you did and how you used it. But
I think you're right until a certain point. Like, it's true that listeners doesn't get all those little details that you put into your music. But after 10 songs that you put out, or 20 songs that you put out, people start to realize, oh, that's not something, you know, made from, you know, it's not made by a mistake or random. It's his sound. So at some point it develops your sound, you know, all these things that you stick with in the long run. It's obvious, because obviously if you put out one song, people cannot really understand your vision, and you don't really have a vision most of the times, because it's one song, you know. And yeah, if you stick with that and you keep that, people will. You know, I'm really trustful, and I really think people will get it at some point if you stick with your vision. You know, if you don't just do music for, you know, because other people does that, or just you want to follow the latest trend.
Absolutely.
You know, you need to make timeless music anyways, and that's gonna help you in the long run. And that's probably what the biggest producer from back in the days they were thinking at that time, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And this was maybe a period of time where people were more like working together, like not like we are just by ourselves locked into our studios. People were more like gathering together and working with other people. And I know you work with a lot of vocalists actually, and I just wanted to touch about this a little bit. And in terms of how do you actually deal with making sure that everyone is happy when you're working with a vocalist? Because obviously you have like 3 scenarios. Like, you have, maybe you've paid them and they do whatever you say, and the end result is gonna sound whatever you want it to sound. Then you have the second scenario where it's a collaboration and you need to be happy with the end result. They also need to be happy with the end result, because you don't pay them up front, obviously, and it's a organic collaboration. And then you have the third scenario when you're doing it for them, and then obviously it matters much more that they are fine with everything, how everything sounds, and they're happy. So how do you actually balance this with your collaborators? Because I've heard of a lot of your tracks with vocalists, and they sound really dope. So how do you deal with making sure they're happy with the? Do you have like do you make any compromises and stuff?
So okay, I'll just basically I'm only I can only speak about the second and the third example, because I never paid for vocalists for my vision. I just don't like that. You know, why would I pay someone to do a job for me? You know, it's a singer, probably is gonna be the most you know, the thing that for people is more important, you know. So I think if someone made vocals for you and they just paid, I don't think they will made it 100%, you know.
I agree.
You're not gonna have the vibe. So I think a producer can work for artists, you know. Obviously for artists I mean vocalists, but the opposite is a bit problematic. At least for what I experience in.
No, I agree, man. I know about this. I know how you work. I just yeah, because I've had these situations like you want the other person to be happy with the end result as well, because they, you know.
I want it to be our song. It's not my song, anyways. I don't like, you know, being the you know, the one that decides everything, because otherwise I wouldn't go with the vocalist. I can do that myself with the talkbox or maybe even singing, but I'm searching for collaboration.
That's a great actually follow-up to this question, because we talked about it like I think last week, because you do the talkbox obviously, and at some point you were like, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna sing my own vocals, right?
Yeah, I mean it's still rough, but at this point, I think, in this point of time, and we are on 2020, and right now you can hear a lot of bedroom producers and bedroom singers that actually are making it into everyday life of normal people, not only producers. They're not only on SoundCloud, they're basically on Spotify and Billboard and really big playlists. If you only think about Chainsmokers, and all these producers that actually sing, but they're not like amazing singers per se. I mean, they're not bad, but I think with all the production, advantages and tools that you can use, your voice can be just another instrument.
Exactly.
And you need to treat it like another instrument if you want to start, because it's if you feel a lot of pressure, for your vocals, I don't think you're gonna ever start. And I am one of the most out of tune person that you can actually find in the world. So I just worked really hard for recognizing pitches. And imagine, like, I couldn't recognize pitches 5 years ago, and now I just started singing. So that was awful. Like at the beginning, I couldn't even, I was hearing the notes in my mind, but I couldn't,
you
put
can't
it out.
make your vocal cords do what you want them to do. I think this is the hardest part, right?
Exactly. But I think after some point it comes natural. I think the vocals and voice in general are the most, easiest, the easiest instrument you have. It's the most natural, you use them all the time. So why don't you train them? Like every other instrument. And that got me into thinking about vocals a bit more lightly, and don't put too much pressure into singing. That was the deal breaker for me. So I started singing, and maybe you're gonna hear one project in Italian, because I obviously cannot sing in English. But there's actually a track which I sang in English on my EP for the dancers, which is probably gonna be released sometime soon when I feel like releasing that. Because I don't know, with this quarantine everything stopped for me, so I think I just took a music pause from life. Yeah.
Definitely, brother. Definitely send all those things to me when you release them. So I'll also try to promote your stuff here on the channel, because, like I said, I'm pretty sure like everyone who hasn't heard of you will be really happy to find such a great sound, such an eclectic sound, awesome mixes. And like I said, we may do another conversation later down the road where we concentrate on maybe on mixing, on sound design, like maybe more technical topics. But this conversation was a real pleasure for me, man. Like it was really nice talking to you, just like we talk when we're not recording, actually, because we
we made other calls actually, and it was just basically the same conversation we had. It's just this time we're recording that, so it was really smooth for me, so thank you.
Yeah, totally, man. It was a real pleasure. And like I said, and in the end of our conversation, where do you want me to send our viewers and listeners, like your socials, any new projects that you want to plug? Maybe, everything will be down in the description, but yeah, just so that people who are interested in your sound can find you and check out your music.
I mean, if you go to my Instagram, I have a Linktree, page that you can find every single platform that I'm in. Actually, you can just go to Bandcamp if you want to buy the music for cheap, or just listen to on Spotify. But as everything, it's on Instagram. So basically, if you link that, everything is there.
Yeah, like it's Madd3e Music, right? Music isn't part of your artist name. It's actually just for people, so that people know it's a music.
Yeah.
Music profile.
Exactly.
Okay, man. Like I said, thank you for being my first guest on the podcast. It was a real honor, and I hope to speak to you again soon, man.
Man, I really hope that's true, actually. I had so much fun, man. Whenever you want.
Oh, totally, man. Totally, man. Like it's really cool for me to introduce another person to my listeners and viewers, because you know, you have your own perspective to bring, and it's really dope. So
thank you.
Thanks again.
And definitely man. Follow Low Hit Beats, because I followed him in the first place on YouTube, and it's actually just of curiosity. And I learned so many stuff, and plus I downloaded so many cool sounds that you need to follow me.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, I remember actually you getting in touch with me, and I was like, man, who is this guy? And when I checked out your music, I was like, whoa, okay. Yeah, man. So
thank you.
See you soon, brother, and bye. Peace.